Hello and welcome to another IELTS essay correction. Before beginning this answer, let me take the opportunity of explaining what exactly is the meaning of foundation over here. The student wrote a journal statement which is not exactly a precise or band-fetching journal statement. What I recommend is usually the first sentence, sentence number one of the introduction should be a journal statement. However, it is a confusion of many students. So what exactly are the components of a journal statement? Let me explain them in this video. Before you begin an answer, it is extremely important that you should analyze the question. The question is, some people think that when people travel to a different culture, they should adapt to the local practices and customs. So first component is travel to different culture. Let me call this number one or A. They should adapt to local practices and customs. So the process of adapting is part B. And what you have to do is connect the two. So you should connect traveling. So there are some foreigners who are traveling, and the foreigners or the travelers should adapt to the local practices and local customs. Now, to write a journal statement, you should be clear about which part lies at the foundation. So, what do I mean by foundation? If this is a building, this is a multi-story building or any building, and this is the earth level. Now, to every building, as you already know, there is a foundation, and without foundation, the building cannot stand on itself. The building is important. However, more important is the foundation. Similarly, in all IELTS questions, there is one component which is a building and another component which is the foundation. While writing the journal sentence, you should keep in mind what is the foundation component. You have travel over here and local practices and customs over here. So what is the foundation? Foundation is something on which the other thing rests. So there is something which is independent of the other thing, and there is another thing which is dependent on foundation. So what is dependent? Travel is not dependent on culture, local practices, but local practices, adapting to the local practices, depends on travel. So at the foundation is travel, this is travel, and the remaining structure, the superstructure, which is called, is the adapting of local customs and traditions. So the opening sentence, it should be on travel, not on customs and traditions. So immigration of people over a wide geographical region has undoubtedly impacted customs and traditions. The question is not on impact on customs and traditions. The question is that if there's a traveler, the traveler should adapt, should copy, should respect local practices and customs. So your journal sentence should be on travel. Do not even bring customs and traditions to picture. Just write on travel. And travel is not immigration. So this is a wrong vocabulary. And this is what I recommend in all my videos. Sometimes what students do is they use wrong vocabulary, and just to show that they have strong vocabulary, they end up with a wrong vocabulary, and this deducts band scores. So don't do this. Travel, you should have simply written, these days people are traveling far and wide, and this has led to several unintended consequences. Something like that. Just focus it on the travel, the first sentence, not on immigration. The second part is that it's always, so once general sentence is clear, you have a general sentence, it's clear, you should in introduction move to the next sentence, which should mention the reasons supporting your views. So if you agree, whether you agree or disagree, you not only have to mention what you think. So I only partly agree with this notion. So if you partly agree with this notion, mention the reasons. Mention the reasons supporting your views. For instance, this is what I've done over here. I believe that visitors should sometimes adapt to local cultures and traditions. Why? To express respect and to learn about diversity. So these are the reasons. At other times, visitors should show their own culture to increase intercultural understanding. So this is partly agree. At one place, they are adapting. At other place, they are showing their own culture, not adapting. So this is a balanced, a balanced view with, both the reasons mentioned in support of the balanced view. Now, moving to the next points, you will clearly see that this answer suffers from the problem of lexical resources. Let me point a few things over here. On one hand, embracing the culture, the words are nice, of a host country. Now, do not assume that every country um, is unicultural. There are a number of countries which are multicultural, and even uniform countries that seem to be uniform. For instance, France has, a thousand cultures. So culture changes from one region to another region. It is more regional than country specific. So this is a difference between a seven band essay and a less than seven band essay. A seven band essay is very precise in terms of ideas, in terms of expression. So instead of writing host country, try writing a region helps to create a friendly atmosphere for the newcomer. The problem here is, okay, newcomer is fine. However, it is not as precise as a traveler or a foreigner, foreign visitor. So use the word traveler, visitor, to make ideas more precise. Now, moving forward, the student has made some mistakes over here. First of all, there's a difference between adopt and adapt. Adopt is when you adopt a baby. That's a process of adopting someone. Adapt is when you acclimatize, when you adjust yourself according to something. So there's a sea of a difference between the two words. The problem continues from here also. So they adopt to the Nepalese society. It is easier to adopt to Nepalese society by not having beef as food because the cow is a national animal and it is an incarnation of goddess Lakshmi. That's the culture is fine, the cultural element. However, the question is not how easier or difficult it is to adapt. The question here is, should they adapt? The question is, should they adapt? So it is better if you had written something like, since cow is considered a sacred animal and is worshipped as incarnation, foreigners have to abandon the practice of eating beef to express respect. Now they should adapt, and why should they adapt? To express respect to local traditions. Now the question is not about easier, but why should they adapt, or should they adapt to local culture? Yes, they should, to express respect for local traditions. So you have mentioned the reason as well over in here. This was precise mistake in this example. Now let us structurally try to understand where exactly does this idea and the explanation stand. So the idea is over here. This is the idea 1, that it helps to create a friendly atmosphere. And here is the explanation. And explanation seems to be fine. Explanation is also good. Just a bit of a problem in example. Example should have been more focused on why should they adapt. So the friendly atmosphere was mentioned over here. So the friendly atmosphere should have been carried over here instead of writing about it is easier to adapt. So it should have been more of a friendly atmosphere to express respect rather than making things easy. Now let us come to the idea number 2, and it begins from here. Besides, here, there are a few issues with idea number 2. Besides, it is less of a financial burden to practice local festivals. The problem here is I can't see a traveler here. There is no mention of a travel. The question is, when people travel to different cultures, they should adapt. So the first element, the foundation part, is missing, and the student has just tackled the superstructure. Um, Without foundation, the idea is incomplete, as materials needed to celebrate are easily, readily available in the local market, cheaper price, so they can show respect to host a nation easily. Again, it is not clear who can show respect. So one can show respect, but who is that one? That one is a visitor, a traveler. So clearly need to mention that. And that makes the idea a bit weak, idea as well as explanation. Of course, you must have celebrated with Christians must have celebrated your festivals in your home country. However, again, it is not clear whether these Christians are travelers. So the task response is really an issue over here. The student should have clearly stayed with the idea and maintained a proper context. Um, Explanation as well as idea and example are not strong enough. And then student moves to the opposite dimension, the other side of this story. And this color is not fine. Yeah. And there are a bit of a problem here. The connection is fine. The connecting sentence is fine. However, there are some serious issues after that. The student talks about Jews over here, and they had stopped practicing their traditions. For instance, the number of Jews who knew the Jewish tradition properly would have slowly declined. The question is not the Jews are they are not traveling; they are staying at a particular place. So, for instance, it's Israel. So they are staying in Israel. They are permanent residents. They are not traveling. So the question was on traveling, and there was um, loss of task response. There was a loss of task response over here. So it's extremely important that this task response is maintained. There are some minor issues here that the numbers can't know a tradition. Um, an important point to discuss is the if-then clause. In an if-then clause, if the if component has present tense, the then component includes the future tense. If the if component has um, who know, I'm sorry, if the Jews stopped, if it has a past tense, then the then clause should have would have over here. So this is somewhat wrong construction and should have been correctly used. This is a grammatical mistake. The lack of task response continues in the next idea as well. So this is the next idea. In addition, um, the practice of native customs helps the host country to realize and develop respect for difference in cultures. Okay, it is fine. Um, However, I cannot see the role of visitors. So, should visitors adapt to local cultures or not? There is no mentioning of the travelers or visitors, and this somehow compromises the task response here as well. So I've tried to correct it. If the visitors display their own culture to native citizens of a place, so the first thing is visitors, then there is their own culture to the native citizens of a place. So this is task response, proper task response. It paves way for trust and harmony between diverse cultures. So what will this do? So the first component is, the first part is for task response. The second is the impact, the reason why this should happen, because it promotes trust and harmony. Then is the example of Nepal, and whose 98% population is Hindu, you know, and Christians and Jews um, are visitors. So Nepali society has become truly diverse with this, and this has made the country a peaceful place to live. So these were my views on this answer. There were a number of issues, mostly related to lack of task response. The question demanded something else. The student either used wrong words such as host country, newcomer, or even completely wrong concepts such as the immigrating Jews. They are not traveling, they are immigrating. So there are a number of issues that need to be addressed. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative. I hope it was truly knowledgeable experience for everyone. Keep watching my videos and stay tuned.